Welcome to FDL Presents the Zach Rocheleau Podcast, and today I have the unbelievable pleasure of interviewing Stefi Cohen. She's fresh off a 4 times bodyweight deadlift, which is absolutely insane to me, weighing at 121 pounds. She is just arguably somebody who makes me self-conscious on a daily basis watching her content and how strong she is. But she's from Venezuela. She played on the Venezuela national soccer team. She is the owner of Hybrid Performance Method Gym. She is the owner of Hybrid Performance Method Online, which is an online training program. So you guys should go follow them on Instagram. It's their big platform. But all in all, Stefi is an amazing person. She's super strong. And what you're going to take away from this interview is, first off, how Stefi's childhood in Venezuela turned her into a fighter, into how that fighter inside of her has actually allowed her to be successful in anything that she's done in life. And on top of all that, whenever she was on the Venezuelan national team, how that was much different than if you'd have been on the US national team and what they were eating whenever they were traveling and how many of them had to sleep in one room. It's pretty insane. And a surprise key takeaway was learning about the Bitcoin mining wave that is going through Venezuela right now, and how there's this hustler mentality in Venezuela. It's like you either make money to get out or you're never going to get out. And lastly, what strong really means to Stefi, and how not only being strong in the weight room, but strong in all facets of her life has allowed her to not only be a strong person, but a strong female that can lead other females to be strong as well. So please make sure to leave a 5-star review. It helps so much. It helps us grow so much. There's so many so far. Please, please, please leave one for us. It's helped tremendously with our growth. Please leave a comment below on who you think we should interview next. It helps. I mean, you give me the idea, we'll make it happen, and we'll provide value to you guys. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Protein Cookie Company, Enlightened, and One Bars. Let's get into the episode. So welcome to the interview today on the FDL Presents the Zach Rocheleau Podcast. And I am so lucky to have Stefi Cohen on the podcast. And after the glorious bio I gave her before the episode even started, you guys know you guys are in for a treat. And so I just want to welcome you, Stefi, and thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
She's had a long day. So I appreciate her taking the time. She's actually in PT school. Yep. And she's actually left her home in Miami to go and do 2 months worth of clinicals in Chicago. So she's in Chicago right now, and she finished her last patient of the night, rushed home so she could do this. So I really, really appreciate it. And she's going to have a smile on the whole time because she's just that nice of a person. So the first thing I'm going to ask you tonight, and what I like to ask every guest on the podcast, is because social media is such a big thing. And it's arguably our website nowadays. It's our portfolio. It's our bio. And we're able to share our lives on there. So if I were to stumble across your page, why would I follow Stefi Cohen?
Why would you follow me?
Mm-hmm. Or why would anybody that's listening follow you?
All right. I think that my profile is a mix of science and exercise and a lot of empowerment and femininity.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, the people who would follow me are people who are interested in learning. There's a lot of education going on in my posts. Are people who are into fitness, most likely, that have some kind of interest in strength sports, iron sports, and that are looking for motivation. And I think that pretty much covers it.
That's good. I mean, your growth lately has been pretty remarkable. I've been following you for a very long time, and it's crazy on social media. You don't really so if you've been following somebody for a while, you don't really look and see. I don't really care how many followers somebody has. I just want to look at the quality of your content. Your quality of your content has always been there. It's always been there. But the big thing I've noticed lately is the world is really starting to notice it. And you're becoming a figure of strength for the female population, and you're making strength cool and acceptable for so many young girls, and it's super cool. And you're actually somebody I would never want to lift with because I would look like a small child. So let's get that out there first and foremost. But it's could you kind of talk about your what recently what you've done in the world of not only your best lifts in powerlifting, but also your best lifts in Olympic lifting, because I know you are pretty good in both.
Yeah, sure. All right, so best lifts in powerlifting. Recently, I pulled 525 pounds. It wasn't in a competition, but 525 pounds in the gym. Most I've pulled in a competition have been 495 pounds. My latest.
How much do you weigh?
123. Yeah, in comp. I usually walk around like 125.
Okay. That's
squatted. I hit a recent personal best at 415 pounds on a duffalo bar, which honestly I think it makes it a little bit more challenging. If for you, for those who don't know, a duffalo bar is just like a bendy bar, not bendy, it's bent.
Well, the weight's sitting lower than normally a straight bar.
It changes the center of gravity and it makes it a little bit more upright, which some would argue that it's a little bit more challenging. And my best bench is 215 pounds today.
Wow, that's impressive. What's your best clean and jerk and snatch?
Snatch 190, 190, 85 or 80, 86. I don't even know. 89. I don't even know. I had like around 190 pounds. I haven't maxed out snatch in about a year, but
okay.
195.
190, and clean and jerk 120 or 110 kilos to 65.
No,
242. Sorry, it's hard
Close
to keep up with the kilos and pounds.
The whole point of that was, the moral of the story is you're really strong, and you're strong in multiple domains, like in sense of a skill, which is an Olympic lift, but powerlifting is a skill in itself, but a lot more maximal strength based. But it's just it's a powerful thing, and I don't want to focus. I know you get asked all those questions about your strength and all this all the time, and I don't want to have this be just another one of those interviews. I want to focus more on what made Stefi into the strong female she is today, and how you are now able to lead a movement. And the biggest thing I want to focus on is, what did your childhood look like, or like from the very beginning, where you were born, a few moments on on the things that you think happened during your childhood and up until you are today that help you shape you into the person you are today.
Okay, so let's take it back to Venezuela, which is where I grew up. I grew up in Caracas, the capital city of Venezuela, in an upcoming middle-class neighborhood. I'm also Jewish, so I was part of a very small community. I followed a lot of the societal norms, was everything that was expected from you. Playing sports wasn't really something that girls would necessarily do, but I feel like I was always kind of fighting those societal norms and kind of just rebelling in a certain way. My mom would probably say I'm a rebel, because I was just kind of doing what I wanted to do, which was playing sports and not playing with dolls and that kind of stuff. So
that girly stuff.
Seriously, no, I never liked any of that. I was a tomboy growing up for sure. I started my athletic journey, started playing soccer at around 7 or 8 years old, and I sucked. I still loved it, but I sucked. I was benched all the time. I never made what do you call the initial team that plays? You told me the other day. The starting team, or
starting line.
I never made the starting lineup. I was always my coach would always put me in kind of like at the end of the game. I don't know. I just felt like my thing was sports, and I just stick with it. So throughout the years, maybe 4 or 5 years into it, I started getting better and better. One of the things that I used to do a lot was observing, actually. So, without knowing, I was doing all of these techniques that have actually been proven to increase performance without knowing. So, for example, visualization, observing. I used to play a lot of FIFA on Xbox. It sounds funny, but if
no,
you
it's
play,
true. Mm-hmm.
if
You understand the game a lot better. You see things.
You see things, you learn plays, you learn tricks, and it allows you to be able to be a creative player, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So you can visualize plays before they even happen.
Yep.
I started getting better and better. I eventually became the team captain of my high school and eventually got drafted to play in the national team for Venezuela. That was kind of, that was one thing that my mom, she supported me, but she didn't really know how to really take it. It was something that not girls from my high school weren't doing. It wasn't really something that other moms would necessarily admire or be proud of their girls doing. It just wasn't what girls were supposed to do. We trained in a dirt field inside of a military base. It wasn't anything fancy. Being a part of a national team in Venezuela is not like being a part of a national team here in the States. It's not prestigious, it's not fancy, it's not pretty, it's dirty, and it's basic, and it's freaking awesome. And I loved every second of it, but it's just not the same as here.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough that I convinced my mom to let me play for the national team and let me travel to what we call the inside of the country, just places where you wouldn't want to be in, very kind of ghetto areas, to say it a certain way. So, for example, if we were to play in another state, we would stay, literally the 20 of us would stay in one room, because that's all kind of all the government would give us. So we would travel in a tiny bus and all of us would stay in a room and figure it out, like bunk beds, 2 people sleep on the same bed kind of thing, eat whatever they give you. Usually the main food there was I forget, I don't even know what it's called in English, but it's pretty much, they traveled with this huge metal not stove, what's it called, where you cook soup,
a kettle,
a pot, whatever, like a huge one, like I'm talking about this big pot.
And you guys would travel with that in your actual bus?
In the bus. And that's what they would do. They would just throw water, like some remainings of chicken, corn, potato, whatever.
And that was the national team, huh?
That is the national team.
That's insane.
And they were actually really good players.
Yeah.
Really good players. A lot of talent, just not enough money. I feel like I'm deviating a little bit from your question.
No, you're good. No, that I can see. So, for example, if I can chime in, I can see why you are where you are today because of this. Because I've noticed this in a lot of immigrants that I talk to. They grow up and they have this. Their norm is a lot different than somebody here. Like, growing up in a neighborhood and hanging out with all the kids in the neighborhood, and you have dinner every night and all this good stuff, and you're wearing polos, and I mean, it's just like, and most people in America have this kind of life, and it's when you come from somewhere where we are the experiences that we have. So, for example, if I don't know what pain is, when somebody pinches me, it's going to feel like, oh man, like the worst thing ever. But if I went to war and I blew my leg off and I don't have a leg, like my perceived bad is a lot different than somebody who's never felt pain before and gets pinched on the arm. Uh-huh. So it's different. We are shaped by the experiences that we have. And so by you going through that experience and still performing, still being able to perform, I think now when you're at the big stage, when you can control all the factors and you can come in based on whenever you're in control and you know what's to expect, I think that's why you're winning. And I think that's why you've been able to make so much progress, is because it's in your favor now. Before it wasn't, you still had to perform. And now you're able to perform and you're able to control all the variables and all the factors that put you in the best possible position to succeed. I believe in Darwinism. It's a real thing. Like, we are the stressors we put on ourselves, and how we handle those and how we perceive them and makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
So
It either makes or breaks you.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so you loved it. Like you loved it. Like you just, it was obvious whenever you were telling the story, you're like, this was like the coolest adventure ever.
Oh, absolutely.
And now whenever you are, and we'll go into entrepreneurship and you training and everything like that, but this seems like piece of cake now, right? Like compared to a lot of the things you had to go through growing up, I can only imagine in another country. I don't know what is it? So for example, what is the living standard? Where would you compare in the United States that's similar to like Venezuela? Like living conditions?
Uncomparable.
Uncomparable. See, like that makes a lot of sense. Like it's that bad, huh?
It's pretty bad. Like
Yeah.
you live really, really good inside of your house, but anything that's outside of your house, it's like complete chaos kind of thing.
Wow. Is there, I mean, I'm so bad with this. Is there any type of like war or anything going on there right now?
No, they never.
Civil War.
They never actually declared a civil war. I mean, right now, what's going on is just most of the countries not in agreements with the current government, but
Okay.
the current government is a dictatorship, so they can't really, and has complete power of the military. So
Yeah.
at a point where they really can't do anything to take him. Because similar to what happened to Cuba, or exactly the same to what happened to Cuba.
Yeah.
Right now, Venezuela used to be a really rich country, and
Mhm.
now they just declared bankruptcy. It has an official term, but pretty much they sold oil. They had a lot of oil. They sold all the resources in oil for the next 25 years, and then they spent the money. So they literally don't have money or resources right now. So
That's interesting. Wow. That is very fascinating. So, that's a weird, so it depends on how you grow up and what cycle you actually grow up in is going to say like how your actual childhood was.
absolutely. Yeah, if you ask someone that's maybe 3-4 years younger than me, they would have a completely different experience.
Wow.
I actually grew up at a point where it was still livable. I have memories of, the most I could do was go to the movies with my friends. Like my mom would drop me off at the entrance of the mall and I could go to the movies and come back, or she could take me to the beach and I would go to the beach and come back. But 3 years younger than me, they couldn't even do that. Going to the movies themselves, no. Going to the beach themselves, no. Nothing like that.
And we complain about, I just like, it's
There's
unbelievable.
other things to complain about here. I mean,
I know.
every place has its pros and its cons.
Yeah. That's it.
But
So what would you say?
Oh, sorry,
Okay,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you're good. You're good. You go ahead.
Yeah, one of the best things about having grown up in Venezuela is you grow up with the mentality. There's a saying in Spanish that says "o corres o te encaramas," and basically that just means either you run or you hang off a branch of a tree. Like you kind of just like gotta look for opportunities. You gotta stay on your toes and just figure out, make the best out of any situation, and work your ass off to survive, kind of thing.
Wow. So it comes down to awareness and a lot of self-awareness. Mm-hmm. So like understanding like, okay, this is happening to me. This could be good. Well, actually finding the good in a lot of situations and making the most out of them. There's a lot of this.
Or finding your own opportunities, like just making however the hell you can.
That's amazing. So is the goal a lot of times to get to America?
The goal a lot of times is to get outside of the country.
Okay.
So just to leave, especially now.
And is that hard? Is that hard to get out?
This is where it gets interesting. So minimum wage in Venezuela is $25 a month. So if you do the month, if you're making $25 a month and a freaking bus ticket to get outside of Venezuela is definitely more than $25, significantly more. If you want to cross the border on a bus, that's probably at least $100. If you want to fly out, that's at least $200 to fly to Colombia or something like that. So where do you get the money? If you're only making 25, it doesn't matter how good of a saver you are, you're just never going to be able to do that. So if you're making that amount of money, you're probably never going to get out unless someone helps you. Some people have friends, family outside of the country that can help them. And if you're middle class, maybe you have the money to get outside, but you don't have enough money to survive outside. That's where a lot of people end up. If you didn't have any money saved, then what are you going to do? You're going to get to Miami, and what do you do? So
Wow. That's like perspective. Oh my gosh.
And I
Wow.
have an
So
interesting story for you that falls into this category. Just a sidetrack. Have you ever heard of Bitcoin?
Bitcoin. Yep.
So this is really interesting. Have you heard of Bitcoin mining?
No.
Okay, so apparently there's a way to mine Bitcoins. And the biggest Bitcoin mining country right now is Venezuela. And it's back, o corres o te encaramas. Like you better figure your shit out. How are you going to do it? So because electricity is subsidized by the government, they have these huge plans of Bitcoin mining now. So, people just have 20 computers hooked on and turned on, and they figure out the algorithms and they mine Bitcoins, and they make like $1,500 or $2,000 a month, whoever knows.
What? That's
But there's like
crazy.
a bunch that does that.
That's super fascinating. I'm learning a lot right now. Wow.
Look it up and see.
Wow.
Actually, I'd say it's everywhere in the news, but look it up and it's
Wow.
really.
So the question that leads me is and I know everybody's probably thinking, how did you get out?
Initially I had a potential soccer scholarship to play soccer for San Diego State University.
Mm-hmm.
So I just left with what my mom. I was lucky enough that my mom was able to support me. Like if he sent me out, like I literally just flew out and just landed in San Diego alone, and just my mom was helping me. I was lucky. The scholarship didn't end up happening. I was kind of on trial for about 4 months that I was playing with the team, and I just decided I didn't want to stay in San Diego. So then I tried out for the team in Miami that I play with for a couple of months too, and then I decided it was too hard for me to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't have a scholarship, but I was okay.
And so you could just stay.
I was lucky. Yeah, my mom was.
Wow. So I mean, it's safe to say your childhood definitely shaped you into the person you are today. 100%. So that leads me into, was there a defining moment? So I'm so fascinated by perceived setbacks actually turning into the best thing that ever happened to you. Was there a defining moment that you remember to be like, at the moment being like, oh my gosh, it's like the worst thing that ever happened to me. But in reality, it's led you to, it's actually in hindsight, the best thing that ever happened to you.
That's a really good question. I feel like I haven't had like a precise moment in time like that, but just quitting soccer for me was kind of pretty terrible. Soccer was my whole life growing up, and then I got here, I felt like I wasn't good enough, and that's the reason why I quit. And then I thought I made a huge mistake and thought it was the worst decision I could have ever possibly made. Went through a few months with really depressed and just not knowing who I was anymore. Soccer was who I was. It was my identity. So I kind of lost that for a second, and not only my identity, but my goals. Like I didn't have any goals anymore, and I've never been one of those people who are academically oriented.
Yeah.
Even though I was still in school, my goal has never been to get straight A's, and it never will. I'm just not one of those people.
Good for you.
So I mean, I just cared about going and learning and making friends and that kind of stuff, but I just couldn't find anything to kind of focus all my attention on, and I feel like that was a really rough patch. But that led me to explore other sports, and
now you're able to. Yeah, I know. So how did you find? Say that again.
I would have never tried CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, or powerlifting. Yeah. I would have kept playing soccer.
How did you stumble upon those three?
CrossFit was pretty hot. I went to school with Noah Olson, and he was actually in my program. So, all of our exercise physiology and strength and conditioning professors would talk about him. Oh yeah, Noah this.
Noah Kagan. I'm not Noah. I mean Noah Olson. He's so cool. Yeah. So
eventually I was like, all right, I'm gonna go meet this Noah Olson.
Yeah.
Train with him and see what it's all about. And so I went to Peak 360. I met him. I started training, and then that's how I got into Olympic weightlifting. Well, there's a story actually there in the middle. There was a coach at a CrossFit gym who was coaching me in CrossFit back then, and I was kind of started to doing Olympic weightlifting, but I was stuck in middle of the two, and I asked him if I should focus on either or, because I wanted to get good at a sport. I missed being competitive. And he told me I would never be good at either of those sports.
Wow.
Like straight up to the face. You know what, Steph? Don't worry too much about it. You're not going to be good either way, so who cares? And that to me, that was really, I've told this story probably a million times. I will never forget that. That was kind of one of the things that really fueled the fire.
Mm-hmm.
That comment, that gets under your skin. You're like, what? Who the hell are you? And what the hell do you know about the future of me? Like, based on what?
Amen. So every moment you're envisioning the look on his face. Like, you're like, yeah, look at me now. Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
I love it. So do you know Guido and Virginia very well?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. I talked to Virginia earlier today. I'm actually giving a keynote at Wadapalooza.
That's awesome.
So are you guys going to be there?
Yeah, probably. Well, we'll be in Miami, so I think we'll be there.
Awesome. Yeah, we plan on being there for about a week, so we will definitely be in touch. So that'll be a lot of fun. So it's funny that how big Wadapalooza has become. It's arguably bigger than the CrossFit Games now.
You think?
I think. The way Virginia and Guido are talking about it this year, it's going to be, especially with the venue in Miami. There's so much more that can be done whenever you have it in Madison, Wisconsin. Like, I mean, there's only so much you can do. Like, let's be honest.
A trip to Miami, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's cool. I like it. So you are super strong. You came from Venezuela. You had I'm not gonna say I wouldn't say a rough. You've had a not the typical beginning to us American folk. A little bit more difficult. And then you left soccer. You got introduced to Olympic weightlifting and CrossFit. Where did powerlifting come into the picture? Just after, like, how come you do not compete in CrossFit right now?
In CrossFit, oh my gosh, that would be funny to watch. Right? I took my dog for a stroll the other day, and I thought it would be a good idea to start jogging, and I think I lasted about 3 minutes. Seriously, no. So my weightlifting coach, his name is Camilo Garcia. He was the coach for the national Venezuelan team, which is interesting. He actually lived in Venezuela and coached the team there. And Wow. He also coached the national Cuban team. And he got to Miami, and now he coaches weightlifting and a little bit of aerobics. But his training philosophy basically is, like, since the moment I started, he's always been like, get your squat and deadlift up, squat and deadlift. Like, he taught me how to snatch and clean and jerk basically with a broomstick for months. Like, this guy would not let me snatch anything besides a barbell for literally my first 6 months of weightlifting. So my technique was there since the beginning. I was very technically sound. And then after that, he's like, all right, don't worry about snatch, clean and jerk. You just need to get your squat and deadlift up. So 3 years went by, squat and deadlift went up, but I was still pretty stubborn. Like, I wanted to just do snatch, clean and jerk. Until I met Hayden, and that was kind of the perfect opportunity because Hayden did powerlifting, and I pretty much just told Camilo, I'm like, my boyfriend does powerlifting. You think it'd be a good idea? And he was all about it. He's like, squat and deadlift. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, Hayden's kind of strong.
A little bit.
That's cool. So how did you and Hayden meet?
Hayden slid into my DMs.
Oh, typical. I should have known.
We competed in this. Well, actually, he did, but we competed in this in the same Olympic weightlifting competition a couple of years ago. And he saw that I was there, and he messaged me. I was selling singlets back then, so I was
nice.
With this guy called Wilmer. So he made singlets in Venezuela, and manual labor in Venezuela is the cheapest thing ever. And by the cheapest thing ever, I mean I was buying these singlets for like $1.50. Not even kidding you.
Wow.
I was buying these singlets for $1.50, and I was selling them for $100. And there you go again. Ocorrejo te encaramas. You got to just figure it out. I wanted to travel, and that was my way to make money. I would just buy shit in Venezuela.
Margins on that. That's solid.
I would just sell a few and have enough money to go travel, which is the only thing that mattered to me at that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you guys.
So yeah, so he messaged me asking me for a singlet.
Mhm. Oh man, that was nah, that wasn't the true reason. He was just trying to, oh yeah, I need a singlet. Yeah, right.
Exactly. So we worked out. He was in Miami, so we worked out a few times. He ended up changing his plan was he was gonna leave maybe 2 days after the competition. He ended up staying for the entire week.
Good
And
for him.
yeah,
Good for him. I'm
kept in
proud of
touch.
you, Hayden. Good decision. Good decision.
Going like this.
Oh, that's awesome. So now you guys have created something called the hybrid performance method, and you guys actually have your own gym in Miami. I personally train there, and the environment and everybody that was there is just super cool. And I just want to kind of tell a story. I was actually in Miami, and Steffi and Hayden were actually out of town, and I needed somewhere to train. And I was in the Miami area and they weren't there, but they actually gave me the code and everything to go train there. And it was like the coolest thing ever. I just thought that was so cool. I thought that was like so super nice. And I got to train there. It was super nice gym. So for those that are listening to the podcast, first off, exactly is the gym? And then what exactly is the hybrid? I know because it's online and a gym. So kind of explain how both of those actually work.
Sure. Yeah. So Hybrid Performance Method Gym is located in Wynwood. It's the art district in Miami, Florida. Super cool area if you're ever visiting. It's kind of hipster. Did you get a chance?
Oh yeah, definitely. We got some really cool like B-roll shots when we were out there. Like the art district, so cool. So
You know, it's actually legal to paint graffiti there.
you can just
Well,
wow.
I think you need to let someone know what you're gonna do, kind of the plan, what you're sketching.
Yeah, but you can just.
But you can go and actually, if you walk around and buy spray paints, you can like draw your name.
Oh man, that's interesting. I don't know. I have no artistic ability except for with food. That's about it. So.
Yeah. So Hybrid Performance Method Gym is there. We basically we wanted to. We were struggling with our own training. Living in Miami, we couldn't find a place that would accommodate for us to train Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting, and also have all the other stuff we like to do for functional training, like stones or what do you call this, sandbags and farmer carry handles and yokes. There's literally no place in Miami that has all of them. So it would make my training very hard, especially because I go to school full time and I would get out of class tired and or late, and I wouldn't have a place to train. Then we started running into other issues like gyms not wanting us to film, and that's a big problem because we also have the online program that we need content for. So we said, why don't we just get a small place that we can train at? That's initially we weren't even gonna have people training there. And so more and more people started to get interested in the facility. So we just opened the doors and let people train in there.
Awesome.
And then Hybrid Performance Method online training basically is we create a software for us to be able to distribute online workout programs. So the way it works is it's kind of like an online gym. Because we have 9 different programs. People pay a monthly fee and they get access to all these 9 programs.
That's awesome. Yeah. And your training, it obviously hybrid performance means you are performing a lot of different movements, a lot of functional movements, and you're training, but you guys do have specialized programs that actually are designed to get a desired specific result. But then you have programs that also are more mixed modal and they're just an overall fitness level. So then you kind of get that strong man, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, more of like kind of like a CrossFitter without. I don't know how much of the cardiovascular you guys add in there, but and the skill work. But I definitely have seen. I definitely enjoy watching you guys' content because it's cool. A lot of people enjoy that kind of training. A lot of the bodybuilding community gets monotonous. And you're not focused on any type of performance marker. You're focused on something that is subjective, which is your physique. And I wanted to kind of get your take on that for somebody who competes in a weight lifting sport that it's very easy to track. Okay, you're getting stronger. what is your take on the physique sports? Would you ever compete in anything like that? Because you have I know people have said it to you many times. You have a well-developed physique, and I know people have said, "Oh my gosh, Stefi, if you step on stage, you would kill it." Oh, like I know you hear it. So what do you say to these people?
I could never compete in bodybuilding, mainly because it's not true. I'm definitely not stage ready. Like, have you seen how dry?
Oh, I'm just saying you have the base. You have the base.
But imagine,
yes.
if I would have to cut to be that amount of leanness, I would probably not enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, like you said, it's subjective. So I've heard, and I'm sure you have heard too, about all the politics behind bodybuilding.
Yes.
That just doesn't sound like a good time to me. I mean,
no.
Who go to compete, who their coaches are the judges. Like, how does that work? Or if you're the coach and your athlete is on stage, are you going to judge them poorly?
I know there's no bias there. Of course not. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I just don't enjoy that kind of aspect of bodybuilding. But who knows? I'm not going to say never, because who knows? In the future, maybe I will.
Absolutely. So what would your advice be to, say there's a 18 to 20-year-old girl? Her whole life has been told, just like you were, that being strong as a female, and it's becoming more and more, society is more accepting to it, but there's still that notion like, oh my gosh, like I'm not even worried about like, are they going to get bulky or things like that. I'm talking about what is strong, like what has being strong in weightlifting and powerlifting, how has that affected you being an entrepreneur, your confidence level in life, and you being comfortable with just who you are as a person? Has it helped you become more confident, or more of a risk taker, or being able to stand in front of an audience and talk and just be more confident in yourself?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, your question has many parts, but I'll start by tackling the last portion of it.
Okay.
As far as confidence goes, I mean, for me, it's been a huge confidence builder just to be able to kind of look at society straight in the face and go, screw you, just look at what I can do and look at what I'm doing. And I don't care about what anyone says. I'm doing what I enjoy doing, which is being the best athlete I can be. That has been the goal ever since I was 7 years old that I started playing soccer. The manifestation of it doesn't really matter. Right now, it's powerlifting. Before it was weightlifting. Before it was CrossFit. Before it was running marathons. And it's always been there. That to me has always been, how good of an athlete I can be. And in this case, it's been this, and it's meant breaking societal rules. And being able to do that while at the same time still looking feminine and still. Hold on, sorry. My dog is just going crazy. It's really difficult for me to focus. Let me calm him down. He gets, at this time of the night, he gets the sumis that are insane. He just runs back and forth, and it's just crazy. Okay. So to be able to break the societal norms and compete in a sport that's male dominant while still looking feminine and staying small, which is something that I know that it's important for a lot of girls.
Yep.
It's just refreshing. It's an accomplishment on its own.
And it's got to be cool. Like, it's got to be like being, and especially with today, to where you can really create a trend, and social media is really showing you a lot of love right now, and you're able to make a big difference because you're now able to show this on a grand scale and be able to smile, be a female, but be strong. Mm-hmm. And so how do you think everything that you've done has translated into you being an entrepreneur? Like, especially growing up in Venezuela, it sounds like you always had that entrepreneurial mindset because you had to figure it out. It was like you reap what you sow. Like, if you were going to be stuck there, you're going to be stuck there, or you made yourself so valuable that you're able to be sent somewhere else to make that a reality.
Right. No, I mean, I feel like I've always had an entrepreneurial mind, entrepreneurial spirit. My goal has always been to be my own boss. Ever since I understood what a job was, I always said I never want to be employed by anyone. Now, when it comes to what I'm doing right now, I feel like I'm really good at kind of leveraging and finding opportunities in feeding it off of what my skills and talents are at the moment. So right now, I saw the opportunity, that the increase in the trends of fitness, and I kind of just leveraged it into what I'm doing right now. But it's
That's
not
awesome.
it's not like it's a newfound entrepreneurial spirit that I just.
No.
It's definitely always.
And it makes sense. And you have this goal that you're always working towards. And I believe no matter where you guys' business goes, there's always going to be that no matter if things change, you're always going to have that goal that you're working towards, and you'll get it. It's like, it's not a surprise when somebody's going to be successful or make a difference in what they're doing. It's the habits. And it's so cool to know that it makes sense now. Like I'm such a fan of the childhood. Like, it's amazing how it's almost causation. It's like the how your childhood was and how you handled things when you were a kid actually makes sense on where you are today.
I would say I
fascinating.
totally agree, and I would say that the key point from what you say is how you handled whatever adversity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a really interesting book that I was reading, I think it was by Malcolm Gladwell, one of his books, that looked into how really important companies, like for example NASA, what is their process for picking candidates. And they actually look at adversity, like tell me about the hardest point in your life and how did you handle adversity, how did you overcome it. And they look at grades, for example, your grade point average is a 3.0 out of 4, but you had a semester with a 1.5. Can you tell me what happened and how did you overcome that? And that for them is better than a person with a 4.0 GPA that has never had to encounter it or has never had any kind of difficulties in life. Because why? You throw them into this job where they have to learn new things and where they don't know every single answer, and now they're in adversity.
Then they crumble.
Are they going to quit, or what are they going to do? So.
No, that's awesome. It's cool because so many companies use that as one of their questions now. I remember reading that, and now so many companies use that as one of their main questions that they ask them is, okay, that's kind of where I get the question is like, where does that main adversity that you had in your life that actually turned into the best thing that ever happened to you? And no matter what, there always is something. There's always something that's there. And that you'll remember as that inflection point that you can kind of point towards that moved you in the right direction. So I've really enjoyed this. It's really cool to get to know the person behind the strong person behind the strong person. I definitely, it's really, really cool. So what I want to move on to is the last question. It's a question I ask everybody, and it's one that I'm super curious by, and it's about your funeral. And at first, when we think of our funeral, we think of it as something that is perceived bad, but I think of it as motivation, because at every funeral there's a eulogy. So I'm gonna set the picture here. So you've passed away. Today's your funeral. There are thousands of people there. They're there to mourn your death, but celebrate your life. And there's somebody up on stage going to give your eulogy. You have no clue who they are. No clue. It could be somebody in your family, or it could be somebody you met 2 or 3 times. What is the story that you would love that person to say about Stefi? What life did you live that person can look back on and tell a story, no matter if they met you twice or they knew you your whole life, that you would be proud of and you'd want that eulogy to be told to everybody in attendance?
It has to be like one story, or it could be just
no, in general. So like a story about the life you lived. Okay. So like a moral of the story, like what kind of person you are, what kind of difference you made, things like that. What would that person say?
Right. Okay. I feel like they would tell a story about a person who was never complacent and kind of was always looking for the next thing, the next opportunity, who was very consistent, dedicated, and lived to, I guess, help others. It had a purpose to educate and help, and just never gave up, I guess.
No, that's perfectly fine. I love that. It's fascinating. It's just, I'm super fascinated by the idea of reverse engineering. So I think if you want to live a purposeful life and a life that's worth remembering, I think the eulogy is a powerful way to remember it. I love the whole idea of like, I love Martin Luther King. I think he's the way he lived his life was a life that somebody was worth fighting for. And he did so many things that did not seem that he would make a big difference, but they multiplied over time. And I'm fascinated by the fact that he had a hell of a eulogy. Like his whole life was worth remembering. And so I wish everybody that listens to this podcast would take the principles that they learn and they can apply in order to where no matter who says their eulogy, it'll be an amazing one. And that's what I want. And so that's why I love that question. And what you said was perfectly fine. Have you ever
answered that question on a podcast?
Well, that's good. That's good. You said you've never answered that before?
Oh, well, no, never. I don't think I've ever even thought about my funeral without having a panic attack, but actually, no. I asked, have you ever answered that question on a podcast?
I've thought about it a lot. It's something that I really think about all the time. I personally have not answered it on a podcast, but I've answered it before. So it's this is a fascinating thing. So everybody I end the podcast with, I talk about that whole question because it's cool. It kind of catches people off guard, and especially early on in this podcast, like they're like, "Whoa, like what?" But in reality, like your life is it a celebration? Is it something? Yes, you're mourning a loss, but like, was there a lot of good that was able to be multiplied over time because you were a good person, because you helped so many people that now the world is a better place? That's what I'm super fascinated by. It's like I wanna interview as many people who feel the idea of a servant leader. They are focused more on being a leader and making themselves as valuable as possible and doing it in a way that it's not how much money you made, it's how you made your money. And they're focused on getting other people results and making the world a better place that way. And that makes them a servant leader. And that's the kind of people I want to interview. And so you were one of them. And so I want to thank you so much for everything that you've done. You're doing things the right way. And I just can't thank you enough for, after a long day, taking the time to tell these stories. And I'm humbled by your beginning and how you've been able to create the life you have today. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, of course. I appreciate you having me.
That was awesome. So as always, everybody listening, please go check out Stefi. All of her information is going to be linked below. She's an amazing person. If you ever want to feel really weak, go watch her videos. And but nonetheless, go follow her because she is a testament to doing things the right way. She took hardship and turned it into a life of purpose and a life of motivating other young girls to take control of their lives and be strong. So take this and run with it. Understand that strength is relative, but strength can be something that can be applied to make you, and motivation. So that moment when that coach told you that you couldn't do it. Look at moments in your life where somebody's doubting you and use it as motivation and take that as strength to push forward. So thank you so much, Stefi. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As you know, I appreciate each and every one of you. And as always, God bless, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you, Stefi.
Thank you.